Have you ever had someone disappear on you, just stop responding without a word, and then suddenly, out of the blue, they show up again like nothing ever happened? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Confusing, sometimes even painful. And if you're anything like many of us in our 60s and beyond, you've already given so much of your heart, your time, and your energy in relationships over the years. So when someone ghosts you, then casually walks back in, it stirs something deep inside. Maybe it feels disrespectful. Maybe it triggers old feelings of abandonment or not being seen. Maybe, just maybe, it makes you question your own worth. But here's what I want you to know. You are not alone in this. And more importantly, you are not powerless. In fact, what if I told you that this kind of situation is actually an opportunity? Yes, an opportunity to stand tall in your values, protect your peace, and even grow stronger emotionally. You don't have to get dragged back into confusion, disappointment, or hurt. You can respond in a way that honors who you are today, not who you used to be or who someone else thinks you should be. Let's talk about how to do that. How to respond to a ghoster who comes back without giving away your power. The first step is to pause, take a deep breath, and check in with yourself. Before you respond, before you say anything at all, I want you to check your MVNWNN. That stands for your morals, your values, your needs, your wants, your negotiables, and your non-negotiables. Now, I know that might sound like a mouthful, but don't worry, I'll walk you through it gently. Think of it like taking inventory of your emotional home. You wouldn't let just anyone walk into your house, sit on your favorite chair, and leave muddy footprints on the carpet, would you? No. So don't let anyone waltz into your emotional space without first checking if they belong there. Start with your morals and values. What really matters to you in a relationship? Any relationship? Maybe it's honesty. Maybe it's consistency. Maybe it's emotional availability. Now think about your needs. Do you need clear communication? Do you need someone to show up when they say they will? And what about your wants? Those things that aren't essential, but that add sweetness to life? Maybe it's regular check-ins or thoughtful gestures. Then there are your negotiables, things you can be flexible on, and your non-negotiables, the lines you will not cross. For some people, inconsistent communication is a deal breaker. For others, they can allow a little wiggle room. The point is, you have to know yours. When we don't know where we stand, it's very easy to get swept up in the charm of someone who reappears after ghosting. Maybe they come back with a sweet message. Maybe they seem vulnerable. Maybe they act like nothing ever happened. And if you haven't checked your own internal compass, your MVNWNN, it's easy to default to old habits. To chase, to please, to try and fix things. But this is the moment where your strength begins. You stop and ask yourself, does this person's behavior align with what I believe in? Do they meet the basic needs I've worked so hard to honor in myself? Or am I about to invite someone back into my space who couldn't be bothered to text back just a week ago? And this brings us to something I learned the hard way. Many times, actually, actions will always tell you more than words. That's the next piece I want to share with you today. It's so easy to get swept up in words. After all, we've lived long enough to hear all the right ones, haven't we? I'm sorry. I miss you. I've been busy. Things have been hard. And maybe those words are true. But if the actions don't follow, the words are just noise. Fluff. Empty calories that fill us for a moment, but leave us emptier than before. I grew up in a household where words were often used to cover up pain. Promises were made but not kept. Hugs were offered with one hand, while harm was done with the other. So I learned early on that words are easy. They're convenient, but they don't mean anything unless they're followed by action. So when someone returns after ghosting you, I want you to watch, not just listen. Don't jump to respond. Don't pour your heart out just yet. Just watch. Are their actions consistent with what they say? Are they making time for you? Or are they sending messages that feel like an afterthought? Are they following through or offering vague excuses? Let their behavior show you who they are. Not the poetry of their apology, but the pattern of their presence. Now here's something that really changed the game for me, and it might for you too. It's a small step, but it's powerful. Set your alarm. Yes, you heard that right. I mean it quite literally. When someone texts you after ghosting, and especially if their message is casual or vague, you don't have to reply right away. In fact, don't. If it took them 3 days to respond, you wait 3 days. If they took 7 hours, you take 7 hours. Now, this isn't about playing games. This is about protecting your energy. It's about staying grounded in your own pace, not letting someone else's inconsistency knock you off balance. It's called matching, and it's a form of emotional self-respect. So set that alarm. Don't let the excitement or confusion of their return make you forget what it felt like when you were waiting, wondering, questioning your own worth. When you give yourself that time, whether it's 3 hours, 12 hours, or even a full day, you create space. Space to check in with yourself. Space to breathe. Space to choose your next step with clarity, not emotion. Because here's the truth. Reacting is easy. Responding takes strength. And at this stage of life, we've earned the right to respond with wisdom. And while you're in that space, you might notice something stirring inside. Old feelings, perhaps. A little anger. A little sadness. That ache in your chest when someone who once ignored you suddenly acts like you matter again. That's when it's time to do something that most people never learn how to do, no matter how old they get. It's time to master your emotions. Now, I know that phrase can sound a little intimidating. Master your emotions makes it sound like we're supposed to be stoic monks sitting in silence while our heart breaks in the background. But that's not what this is about. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean you won't feel things. It means you'll understand where those feelings come from, and you'll know how to move through them without letting them take the wheel. Let me ask you something. When someone ghosts you, then comes back like nothing happened, does it remind you of anything? Maybe something from way back, something you haven't thought about in years? For many of us, especially those who grew up in unstable or emotionally distant households, this pattern feels familiar. Maybe you had a parent who was loving one day and distant the next. Maybe someone made you feel invisible when you were a child, and that hurt has followed you ever since. What we often don't realize is that the strong emotional reactions we have today are often echoes of our past. They're not really about this person who ghosted us last week. They're about all the times we were ignored, overlooked, or made to feel small decades ago. But here's the beautiful part. When we become aware of this, we can do something truly powerful. We can stop reacting from our old wounds and start responding from our healed wisdom. Let me share a little story with you. Not long ago, I was texting with someone new. At first, the messages were thoughtful. The responses came regularly, even if they weren't as detailed as mine. I thought, okay, maybe this could be something. Then came the silence. They said they'd follow up that evening. Nothing. The next day, they said they had time and would respond to everything. Again, silence. Old me would have gone straight into panic. I would have felt abandoned, disrespected, maybe even ashamed. I would have questioned what I said or blamed myself for being too much. But not this time. This time I paused. I reminded myself, their behavior is about them, not me. And more importantly, my reaction is about my history, not this moment. It was time to get off their back, get out of their way, and get on with my own life. That little phrase, get off their back, get out of their way, get on with your life. It's something I learned through recovery work. And it's one of the most freeing things you can do when someone disrespects your time or attention. Getting off their back means you stop obsessing over what they're doing. You stop checking your phone. You stop rewriting that text in your head. They get to live their life however they choose. Getting out of their way means you stop trying to control them. You stop hoping they'll see things your way or change just because you were kind or patient or vulnerable. Their growth is not your responsibility. And getting on with your life? That's the golden key. For me, it looked like this. I went for a walk. I cleaned my space. I called a friend. I sat by the pool with a good book. I did things that poured energy back into me instead of draining it away. And in that quiet space, something magical happened. I realized that I wasn't actually upset at this person. I was upset at the way my inner child still longed for someone to choose me, the way I needed to be chosen years ago. But I'm not a child anymore. Neither are you. We don't have to wait for someone to validate us, explain themselves, or fill in the gaps. We get to decide how we respond. Which brings us to the next powerful piece of this process, the critical response. So let's say the ghoster comes back. They finally reply, maybe with a little apology, maybe not. Maybe they just say as if they didn't leave you hanging for days. Hey, how's your weekend been? Now, in the past, you might have been tempted to open the door wide again, pour your heart out, try to reconnect. But this time is different. You've already checked your MVNWNN, your morals, values, needs, and all the rest. You've seen that their actions don't line up with their words. You've given yourself time and space to breathe, to reflect, to reclaim your calm. So what do you do now? You match them. If they give you surface-level communication, you give them surface-level communication right back. Not out of spite, not as punishment, but as a healthy boundary. Let's say they text after ignoring your thoughtful message days ago. Hey, what's up? You might simply reply, "Good day. Hope yours is going well." That's it. No venting, no chasing, no pretending nothing happened. You stay in your power by not giving more than you're receiving. You protect your emotional energy by not investing in someone who hasn't shown they're ready or willing to invest in you. And if they do share something personal, maybe a little vulnerability, maybe something they're going through, you can choose how much you engage. If they haven't earned your trust through consistent action, you don't have to step into the role of caretaker or emotional support. In fact, I'll tell you what I did. When someone I knew for years sent me a message that only responded to one small part of our previous conversation, ignoring all the meaningful threads we'd started, I gave a one-word reply. Amazing. That was it. Not out of coldness, but clarity. That person didn't match my vulnerability, my consistency, or my respect. So I matched their effort. No more, no less. There's a real kind of freedom that comes from this. From realizing that you're not being rude. You're not being too sensitive. You're simply honoring your truth and acting from a place of self-respect. And at this stage in life, isn't that one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves? Now, of course, there's one more piece to this puzzle. Because sometimes the ghoster notices the shift. They might ask, "Are you okay? You seem distant." Or they might even say, "Did I do something wrong?" And that's when we arrive at the final question. To divulge or not to divulge. To divulge or not to divulge. That's the big question when someone who ghosted you starts asking why you're suddenly quieter, more distant, or simply not the same as before. Now, I want to be clear. There's no right or wrong answer here. It all depends on your relationship with this person, how well you know them, and how safe and respected you feel when you're interacting with them. If you've only just started getting to know someone and they've already ghosted you once or twice, chances are you don't owe them much, especially not your inner story. You've done the inner work to get calm, clear, and boundaried. That doesn't mean you owe an explanation for your healing. On the other hand, maybe this is someone you've known for years. Maybe they're not toxic or malicious, but just emotionally inconsistent, unaware, or overwhelmed. In that case, you might choose to share a little bit about your process, but only a little, and only if you can do it, without giving your power away. Let me tell you how I approached this. I had a longtime acquaintance who recently ghosted me after making plans and promises. When they finally popped back in and asked what was going on, I didn't open the floodgates. I didn't go into all the history of my abandonment wounds or how my childhood made me sensitive to people disappearing. I didn't say, "You hurt me," or "You're toxic." That would have made it about them. Instead, I made it about me, calmly, clearly, and with kindness. I said something like this: "You know, I've been doing a lot of personal growth work lately, and part of that means honoring my boundaries and energy. I've learned to pay attention to when actions don't align with words, because that used to really shake me up. I don't expect anyone to change. I just match the energy I receive now so I can stay grounded and not feel depleted." And then I stopped. You see, you don't have to over-explain. You don't have to defend your peace. And you certainly don't have to carry someone else's discomfort for them. What you're doing isn't about blame, it's about balance. Now, sometimes when you share your truth this way, the person may respect it. They may step up, get curious, or even say, "I didn't realize that's how I came across. I want to do better." And sometimes they disappear again. Or worse, they try to turn it around on you. They accuse you of being dramatic, sensitive, or demanding. And when that happens, you'll know you made the right call by holding your ground. You see, one of the gifts of aging is perspective. We've seen enough, felt enough, survived enough to know what peace feels like and what threatens it. We know what it feels like to be pulled into someone else's chaos, and we also know what it means to choose stillness instead. You're not here to chase people anymore. You're not here to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. You've earned the right to say, "I need consistency. I need kindness. I need actions that match words." And if that's too much for you, then that's okay. But it's not too much for me. It's not selfish. It's self-respect. And here's something I really want you to hear. Just because someone comes back doesn't mean they deserve a seat at your table again. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. You can forgive someone, release the resentment, and still choose not to invite them back into your heart. You're allowed to protect your time, your energy, and your emotional space. You're allowed to say, "No, thank you," with grace, and still sleep peacefully at night. Because every time you choose yourself in moments like these, you heal a little more of the past. You tell that younger version of you, the one who was ignored, dismissed, or taken for granted, that you're here now and you've got her back. Or his, or theirs. You're not that child anymore. You're not even the person you were 5 years ago. You are wiser. You are stronger. And you get to decide who stays in your life and on what terms. So if someone ghosted you and came back, don't rush to answer. Don't chase closure. Sit with your values. Match their energy. Respond from strength, not fear. And if you decide to say something, let it be rooted in clarity, not resentment. And if you say nothing at all, that's okay too. Sometimes silence is the boundary. Before we close, I want to remind you of something simple but powerful. Your presence is a gift. Your story matters. Your time is precious. Anyone who doesn't see that, anyone who treats your attention like it's disposable, is not meant to carry your heart. Let them go, if you must. But never let go of yourself. And if this message resonates with you today, I want to invite you to share your story in the comments. Your wisdom could be the light someone else needs. If you found comfort or clarity here, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel Strong Elderly Life for more conversations like this. Real talk, real healing for real people like you. Here's to strong boundaries, softer hearts, and the kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else's response. Here's to living your best life, at any age. You deserve it.